Hello everyone, and welcome to today's GIST Live webinar on extending and customizing your ArcGIS Experience Builder apps. So thank you very much for joining us this morning. We've just got a little bit of housekeeping to go through before we get started, so I'm going to run through that now. So this webinar is live, but it's also being recorded, and we'll share this recording with you afterwards in a follow-up email. This follow-up email is also going to include some links to some useful resources that relate to some of the topics we'll be showing you today. We're also going to be running a Q&A at the end of the session, so please submit your questions throughout the webinar, either by scanning the QR code you can see on screen now, or going to slido.com and entering our event code ESRI2407. Now these QR codes are scattered throughout the slides today and on the last slide as well, so feel free to join whenever you like. We'll be answering our questions in order of their popularity, so please make the most of the upvote feature, just so that we make sure we're answering the most burning questions. And you can provide any feedback on today's session using the polls on Slido. So these will become available towards the end of today's session as well. Just going to pop my camera on. So before we kick off into some demos, I thought we'd just introduce your presenters for the day. So hello everyone, good morning. I'm Sasha and I will be your host for today's session and a presenter for the first half of the webinar as well. And I work as a GIS consultant in our product communications team here at Esri UK. And I'll hand over to Will.
Hi there, I'm Will Carney. I'm a software engineer in our professional services department.
Lovely. So now we're just going to pop our cameras off for the rest of the session today, just so that you can see our screens a little bit clearer. So here on screen, we have our most popular app builders. Now, just to position this session a little bit in terms of configurability, ArcGIS Experience Builder sits at the higher end of the spectrum. So it provides a flexible configuration-only system for building up web applications that can be as simple as sort of one-page map-centric applications up to multi-page applications that include a range of different elements. So for this reason, Experience Builder provides a much greater degree of design control than our other app builders. But of course, that does mean that there is a little bit more to get your head around as well. So when we take a look at what's possible when it comes to configurability in Experience Builder, we can kind of categorize these options into three broad groups: design, data, and interactivity. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but you can see how many options are really at your disposal here. And I'm going to take you through an example or two from each section today, but there really are so many options. So I encourage you to go and get stuck in and see what you can do. Following the update to ArcGIS Online in June this year, excitingly as well, we're now able to take our configuration a bit further with Arcade, which is a lightweight expression language that we use to create custom content across the ArcGIS system. Now, if you're new to Arcade, it's fairly easy to get going with, and there's lots of supporting documentation to help you out along the way as well. And this is all just in the standard edition of Experience Builder. It doesn't really even begin to scratch the surface of configurability when we compare it to the developer edition, which Will is going to take us through a little bit later on. But for now, we're just going to focus on what you can do in the standard edition of Experience Builder, which has even more options now with the introduction of Arcade. So as I mentioned, Arcade expressions can now be added to the dynamic styling of our widgets. And these include standalone text widgets, button widgets, and list widgets. But we can also style the text within other widgets too. So again, I'm just going to show you a couple of ways you can do this. And I'll be using some pre-written script today, so bear with me. But also the webinar will be recorded, as I mentioned. So you'll be able to view the script again if you're wanting to follow similar workflows, pause the video and take a closer look if you're wanting to. So let's go ahead and jump into the first of our three topics, which is design. So in this section, in this little demo, we'll go from simply changing the theme of your Experience Builder app through to some dynamic style conditions, and finally using some arcade expressions to enable some visual changes based on data. So I'm just here to give you some inspiration for what's possible when it comes to configuration in your apps. So hopefully you'll learn something new, but really this is just a taster of what's possible in Experience Builder. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into Experience Builder now. So here on screen, we have a 2-page application that's used for biodiversity planning across 3 sites in Exeter using the OS NGD land cover layer. Now I'm going to be returning to this same application for the other demos in this session as well. So you can see here we've got our main map in the center, we've got a legend, header at the top here, we've got a site selection widget and a list widget on the right hand side, and we also have another page which I'll go to later on as well. So just to scratch the surface of design in Experience Builder, the first thing we can do is head over to the Theme tab, which is on the left-hand side. Now here we've got the option to choose from a range of different themes in our Experience Builder. For example, I could change my theme to dark mode. I could use a shared organizational theme that my organization may have set up. But I can also go in and customize these themes a bit more as well by setting the primary color. So I'll choose a green for this session as we're focusing on biodiversity. And there's also the option to increase your text size, choose your font, and choose your focus indicator colors as well. So that's just a nice way to kind of take your theme a little bit further to start with. But we also have now 2 dynamic styling options to take our widget customization a little bit further as well. So first, I'm going to be using this site selection widget here to show you how we can use conditions to enhance the styling of our widgets. So to do that, I'm going to select the widget box itself, and I'm going to head to the States tab on the right-hand side. When I select this drop-down, hidden down here is a toggle for dynamic styling. If I turn that on and then head into the settings cog, we can see here that I have 2 options. I can style my widget with conditions or with script. So using conditions essentially allows you to apply some simple styling rules to your widgets without any code. So that's really useful for those of you out there who aren't familiar with coding. So to do this, I'm going to add an indicator, which in this case will be my site name, as I'm wanting to color the background of my site selection widget depending on my different site names. I'm going to go ahead and add my first style condition, select unique, and from my drop-down, site A. Here I can select any background color, so I'll choose a light red for this one. And I can go ahead and then add my 2 other style conditions for my second sites. So I'll choose site B from my drop down, and I'll choose a slightly darker red for this one. And you can see if you look to the widget that it's being previewed on just the first of the 3 site selection buttons, but when I come out of my editor pane, we'll see that my whole widget has been styled. Now, I probably wouldn't use red if I was editing this application for real, but hopefully this is just a clear way that you can visualize these different colors. So I'll choose a dark red for site C. And when I come out of my editing pane, we can see now that my site selection widget has been colored according to my different site names. But if I want to take this a little step further, I can use arcade expressions to style the widgets in a little bit more of a complex way. So arcade allows you to create sort of complex and flexible styling logic. So in this case, I'd like this list to be colored according to the different land cover types that each section is showing. So I'm going to follow a similar workflow for this one as well. I'm going to select the entire widget itself and head to the States tab and find my dynamic style toggle and then go into my settings. And here I'm going to select script and open up my arcade editor. So you can see that there's some default code already in here, but I'm just going to paste in some code I've already got. Now, if you're new to Arcade, which I am fairly new to it as well, this may all look a bit complex and overwhelming, but essentially this script here is just asking Arcade to set a color for each item in my list widget based on the land cover type for that site. So for example, I'm asking it to color scrub, this hex code here. I'm asking it to color steps, light gray, made surface, dark gray, and so on. So when I select apply and come out of my editor, we can see that my list widget has updated and it's just enhanced the styling a little bit more. Okay, let's jump into the second section. So the second section of our 3 topics is data. So in this section, we'll go from configuring data views to filter the data that's entering your widgets, to using Arcade to pull in new data straight from a portal using the item ID. I'll head back into our Experience Builder, and this time I'm going to head into my Analyze page. So on this page, I've got the same base map and sites visible here, but I've also got a pie chart widget, and I've also got some text widgets as well that are giving me some overview statistics. So if you haven't heard of data views, they're an easy way to create filtered and sorted subsets of your data, which can then be used by your widgets. So data views aren't copies of your data, but they're views that reflect the original data with a specific set of criteria applied. So by default in Experience Builder, all of your widgets will use the same data framework, which means when you apply an action, such as me zooming in on this site here, you can see that all of my widgets will change and they'll be filtered down by this default data view. In this case, that's not really what I want. I'm wanting, ideally, my pie chart to update dynamically as I zoom in on my sites, but I'm wanting my overall site statistics to stay the same, just so that I've got a kind of overall view that stays on my screen as I'm zooming in and out. So to do that, I'm going to make the most of some data views. Now, to find your data views, you're going to head to the Data tab on the right-hand side here, and I'm going to navigate to my OS/NGD land layer, which is my map layer. Now we can see here that I've already got 4 data views configured, and we can see the relevant widgets as well that they are connected to. So I've got one for each site and also one for my pie chart. And inside here is where you'd create the conditions used to filter using this data view. So I can see that I've got a separate data view already set up for my pie chart. So I just need to set that in motion. So to do that, I'm going to select my map. I'm going to head to the Action tab. And we can see that in my Extent Changes action that I've got set up here, I've got one data view selected. And by default, this is the default data view that's filtering all of my widgets. Instead, I'm going to change this to my land cover pie chart and unselect my default data view. And now hopefully we can see that when we enter live view and zoom in on one of our sites, my pie chart is updating to reflect the different land covers, but my overview site statistics are not changing. So this is just a really useful way to filter the data that is entering your widgets. So with the update to ArcGIS Online this June, we can now also pull in data to Experience Builder, maybe data that we don't own or sort of data that we want to filter, using the portal and the item ID. Now this allows us to extract information from data layers without making changes to the original data source. And then your resulting layers can then be used like any other layer without you needing to kind of add any more layers to your application. So I've got a bit of information in here, but ideally I'd like some more information on tree species in this area. Now, when I head to the item page for some data I found, I can see that my colleague Ben, who is the owner for this item, has some data on some tree species across this same site in Exeter, and this would be really useful to pull into my application. So with this update, I now know that I can do that using Arcade. So I'm going to head back to my data tab, back to my home, and we can see here that the only data I've currently got in my Experience Builder is my biodiversity land cover map. So I'm going to head to my Add Data button, find the Arcade editor, and here I'm going to add in some more pre-written script. Now this script is essentially asking Arcade to pull in some data using the portal URL and the item ID, but we can still see that these aren't filled in here, and that's something I need to do. So when I head back to the item page for the data I'd like to bring in, I can take the item portal from the beginning of the URL. I'm going to go ahead and paste that. And I can also then take my item ID from the end of the URL. That one in as well. And hopefully when I select add, we can see that my data has been added, and the way I'll know this is I'll get a little notification saying done at the bottom here. So we can see once I've selected that my Arcade data has been pulled into my data tab. So let's test this and see if we can make a widget using this data. So I'd quite like to know the distribution of my different tree species. So I'm going to find my chart widget and pull that in to my analysis pane. I'm going to head to the Select Data tab on the right-hand side, and here we have the option to pull in that Arcade data. I'm going to select a column chart for this purpose, and my category field is going to be my species. So there we are. We can see that I was able to pull in that extra information without owning it, without making any changes to its data source, but just to add a little bit more information to my Experience Builder without pulling in any more layers or any more maps or pages. Okay, so let's head into the third and final section for this half of the webinar, and that is interactivity. So here we need to talk about triggers, targets, and actions. Triggers in Experience Builder are events generated by the source widget, and these can be either extent changes or they can be record selection changes. Targets respond to your triggers and perform actions, and these can be set on your widgets or on the data framework itself. Actions are provided by the targets to perform a specific function, and there are two types here. We've got message actions and data actions as well. Message actions perform actions in response to one of the two triggers that I've mentioned, and data actions are pre-configured buttons that you can add to your widgets to sort of enhance their functionality, but these will be selected by the end user. So I'm going to head back into my application one last time and show you how we can make the most of some interactivity. So for this, I'm going to head back into my Explore tab. And we can see at the moment that when I zoom into my sites, close this page so we can see a little bit better. When I zoom into my sites, my list widget isn't updating, but what I'd quite like is for my list widget to be filtered depending on my map extent. So to do that, I'm going to select my map. I'm going to head to the Action tab, and I'm going to add in a trigger. Here, my trigger is going to be extent changes in my map. I want to select the data framework as my target, and I'd like to filter the data records. And I'm going to point this at my survey results, as that's what's powering my list widget. So hopefully now, when I zoom in and out, my list widget will update to filter by the sites for that area. So that's just a really nice way to sort of make the most of some simple triggers and actions. So one step further than this would be our widgets interacting with one another and with the map, so that they're sort of updating dynamically, and that's what I'm going to show you now. So I know that a colleague of mine has set up a survey, and I'd quite like to be able to pull my survey results in depending on my map extent and where I am in my map pane. So to do that, first I'm going to add in a Near Me widget. Now the Near Me widget just uses proximity and your map extent, if you choose, to filter the information that you are directing into it. I'm going to go ahead and select the map. Now I want my current map area to be my search method. And instead of features, I want to be able to view the survey results within the current map area. I'm going to go ahead and add some analysis. And here I want my layer to be my ground truthing survey that I know has been set up. I'm happy for my analysis type to be proximity, but I'd quite like my surveys to be displayed in order of their creation date, just so that I can see when and where people have updated some survey results. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to select OK and come out of my editing pane. And now, hopefully, when I zoom into my sites and select Update Results on my Near Me widget, we can see that the survey results for the area in my current map extent have been loaded, and I can see them according to the date and time that they were submitted. So this is just a really useful way to see any images or just land cover descriptions, or maybe some possible improvements that have been uploaded into this survey. But I'd also like to be able to send in a survey result myself, as I know that when I zoom into Site C and update my results, there are currently no survey results that have been found, and I'd quite like to submit my own. So to do that, I'm going to add in a survey widget. I'm going to go back to my widgets pane, make the most of this search function here, as there are a lot of widgets to filter through, and pull in my survey widget. Here I want to select another survey, and I'm going to locate the ground truthing survey. I want to insert that into my widget, and I'm happy for the mode to be submit a new record, as I want to be able to submit one myself. However, I also want to make sure that send data to this survey is also enabled, so that when I'm selecting features in my map, this will automatically populate some of my survey questions. And this is just a nice way to get your map to interact with your widgets. So in this case, I'm going to navigate to my OS NGD land layer. And the connection I want to make is between the field I'm selecting, which I want to be my site name, and I want this to relate to my survey question, what site are you in? I'm happy with that, so I'm going to select OK, and we can see that that connection has been added here. So now, hopefully, when I navigate into my map and select a point area on my map, we can see it's come up on my map pane in my survey, but it's also automatically populated which site I'm in my survey widget as well. I'm going to select the land type in this area to be trees, as I can see that it's trees here, and I'm going to submit my record. Hopefully now, when I update my Near Me widget survey results, we can see that I now have one that has been submitted, and that was, of course, by me. We can see the land cover type that I've selected, and this is just a really nice way to get your widgets to interact with both with each other, but also with the map itself. Now, in the widget documentation, you'll be able to see which widgets are compatible with each other for interactions like this, and we'll link this resource in the follow-up email. And again, this is just one example of how your widgets can interact. And yeah, hopefully you can use this for some inspiration to check out how you can get some other widgets to interact as well. Now, we also have the ability to enhance our interactivity with Arcade as of the June update. So we can also do things like display message actions based on conditions, or if a filter is applied, or even show the number of days since a record was last updated. So I really encourage you to go and get stuck in and see what you can do when it comes to interactivity. So as you can probably see, Experience Builder provides a really high degree of design and data and interactivity control, much more so than our other app builders. And therefore, a great example of this is our opening plenary of the annual conference this year, which you may have caught in person or online. But if you didn't make it, both of the technical showcases in the plenary were built almost entirely using Experience Builder. You may not have even noticed this because they had such a different look and feel to them to suit the customers they were showcasing. But I really recommend you going and giving that a watch to see what you can do. You can use the QR code on the slide or visit our Esri UK events page. So that's it from me for now, and I'm going to hand over to Will, who's going to take you through the developer edition.
Thanks, Sasha. For the remainder of this session, I'm going to run through and introduce ArcGIS Experience Builder Developer Edition, which allows you to create and extend your own widgets using the JavaScript framework React, utilizing the developer tooling made available via the ArcGIS Map SDK for JavaScript. Just a quick side note before you get started. I think the first really kind of important caveat is you should always try and use the out-of-the-box widgets. This will allow you to sort of create your own workflows without writing any custom code, which makes it easier, cuts down development time, and removes the need to host your own widgets. But if you've hit the ceiling of what you can do with the out-of-the-box widgets, maybe it's time to start creating your own custom widgets, which you can do using ArcGIS Developer Edition. So, what does Developer Edition look like? So once you've downloaded and installed it, you then need to host it. Once you have it running, it looks remarkably similar to the out-of-the-box builder. I have my builder view where I have a whole host of libraries of widgets to pull on. And you can see here, I'm hosting this in my own local environment rather than it being hosted on my own enterprise. However, it looks much like regular Experience Builder. I can drag widgets in, I can tweak their look and feel and their properties just like I would regularly. Next slide, Sasha.
Is that going?
Yep. Another difference is the option here down towards the end of the widget library. Here, my custom widgets are ready for me to use. I can drag them into my app like a regular widget and start to use them. In this case, I've created a very basic widget that stores the extent of my user's map. This is basic, but it's not currently available in the out-of-the-box functionality, so I've created a custom widget. Here, I just link it to my map like I would with any other widget before saving it and launching it. So here, the user gets a basic user interface where they can choose whether to store the extent or the layers within the map frame. So I'm interested in storing the extent around this theater. So I quickly zoom and my widget behind the scenes is caching and storing my map extent. So now refreshing it, you can see the map has remained in the same place.
Is that playing, Will? There we are.
It is now, yeah. So now the map is maintained as an extent, and I can verify the custom widget has stored the map extent in the browser cache by looking at my developer tools. So behind the scenes, I've given the user a nice user interface to interact with, and I've injected some JavaScript that will then store the map extent, grabbing the information passed via the map widget in my Experience Builder application and pushing that into my browser's cache. I then use another bit of JavaScript to take that map extent from the browser cache and add that to my current map extent, reloading it and allowing it to re-navigate to where the user has stored. Great. So now I've created my custom widget and I'm happy with how it functions. I can start bringing it to my application. And here I can utilize all the tooling available in Regular Builder to style and fit my application. So fit my widget into my application. For instance, I can change the styling. allowing me to bring in the theme colors. I can add it to a widget controller to make it more usable and make it expandable. I can even change the header name so that the widget is given a more readable and easy to use title. So here I'm docking my Remember This widget into my widget controller, which allows the user to pop that out and expand it. And I'm giving it a more readable title so that it's nicely spaced, as well as giving it an icon. So you can see none of this is custom code. I'm just utilizing the regular builder experience to sort of customize my custom widget and make it fit nicely into my wider application. And finally, the final touch here, I'm just going to make sure that it opens on default. So when the user launches the application, it's automatically expanded. So this is a nice combination of the custom JavaScript, which is caching and storing the map extent, with some of the sort of out-of-the-box codeless configuration that you can do using regular Experience Builder. Great. So to create this user interface, I'm utilizing some of the web component libraries that come available with Developer Edition. These include Jimu and Calcite. In this case, I'm going to use Calcite as it's most familiar with the wider Esri stack. If you've used ArcGIS Online, you'll probably have seen a few of these buttons. It just makes my whole application fit in with the wider ArcGIS infrastructure. So as part of my UI, I wanted a nice drop down. So I've got a few options for this. Um, I could use a search, or I could use a drop down that allow me to sort of bring in user interface components without writing lines and lines of code. Web components are available within our documentation, straight for you to copy and paste and add to your own application. We also have map components, which allow us to tap into some of our mapping functionality. So if you wanted an embedded map like Sasha's demonstration had, you can utilize the map component that comes within the ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript, which gives us a whole host of different tools for working with web maps. So in this case, I would like to set up a web map to be embedded in my widget. And here I can use the web map component to drag that in. That will then appear in my widget. And I have a bit of control on that, so I can pass props dynamically. So if I wanted, for instance, to only show layers that were relevant to my user, controlled by items my user has shared to them, I can pass in dynamic web map properties and remove layers accordingly. This will then appear in my search. So when the user searches throughout my web map, those layers will be automatically filtered and hidden from the user. So it just allows you to have this hybrid of creating custom advanced logic with sort of out-of-the-box configurable elements, as well as creating reusable and shareable web components, which allow you to build your widgets that can then be applied in different applications to start building up your web applications. A lot of this has been powered through the Maps SDK for JavaScript. And if you want to get started on this and get some inspiration, I really recommend the developer website. Here, there's a whole host of sample applications that allow you to do varying things, such as really advanced visual techniques that you could use in your web mapping applications and widgets, to more simple getting started with web components, building basic user interfaces. There's a whole host of sample snippets of code that you can bring into your own application, or just get some ideas of what's possible using our developer tooling. So that's all I'm going to talk about today. There's a few places I'd point you to if you wanted to get started and sort of explore what I've talked about today. Starting in top left, just the documentation and repository of sample code for the Maps SDK for JavaScript. It's very well documented. If you search the topics, you'll likely find what you're looking for. We then have the calcite components. So this is the library of components that we make available, as well as GIMU components. And here you can find and look for um, different elements that will help you start building your own user interfaces. There's a whole host of sample code for each. So if you want to tailor your user interface in a specific way, you can do that using the component library interface and then just copy it straight into your application. And it's quite neat. It'll save you lots of time and effort writing your own user interfaces and keep it nicely in line with the Esri UI design interfaces. As well, if you want to get started Experience Builder Developer Edition, you will need to download and run it. So you can do that via the ArcGIS Experience Builder developer page. There, the latest SDK will be available for you to download, as well as guidance on how to get started. There is also the repository of sample code for all the widgets available to you in Experience Builder, which you can copy and start tweaking to make your own custom widgets. So I'd really recommend if you want to get started and you don't know where to go, copy and paste one of the sample widget repositories and just have a go at tweaking and maybe chopping and changing a few elements of those. So that's all I'm going to talk about, but thanks for listening, and I'll hand back to Sasha.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Will. So hopefully that's given you a good idea of some of the different options that are at your disposal when it comes to configuration in ArcGIS Experience Builder. I hope you've given you a good taster. But our next webinar will be in August, and we're going to enter the world of 3D and indoors capabilities in ArcGIS in this webinar. So make sure you have that in your diary for Thursday, the 21st of August at the same time, 11 a.m. And you can sign up as usual on our site. So now we're going to go ahead and jump into the Q&A. So if you haven't already, you can sign up to Slido using the QR code on screen now. We'll try and get to the most upvoted questions first, if we can. So first, just taking a look at some of the questions coming in. The most upvoted question at the moment is about the print widget. When will we be able to configure it to use corporate branding? I can see that one of my colleagues has answered that. So custom print layouts are currently supported in ArcGIS Enterprise using a print server, and this allows you to apply your corporate branding. But the same functionality using ArcGIS Online's print server is currently in beta. So there isn't a timeline at the moment for this functionality becoming widely available. But I hope that answers your question. Another highly upvoted question: when can we expect the batch attribute editor to be available in Experience Builder? So batch editing using the edit widget, it's in the pipeline. We don't have a specific date for when this is coming yet, but please, if you have any features you'd really like to see, please head over to the Esri community ideas page and submit them on there. It does actually help guide new features. So yeah, make sure you're adding them in there as well. Is there any plans for a smart editor widget for Experience Builder? The question reads, the one in Web App Builder had features such as copy and pasting features. So we can see that the Smart Editor widget is available in ArcGIS Online and Enterprise as the edit widget. So regarding the sort of copy and paste functionality, there are plans in the pipeline to provide this, but again, the timeline hasn't been determined yet. So we're hoping by the end of the year, and incrementally with sort of the Web App Builder, Experience Builder will reach functional parity over time of Web App Builder, and we're going to be sending out a functionality matrix to compare sort of widget functionality in the follow-up email as well, which has sort of all the release versions expected for each widget, or the replacement workflows for any widgets that aren't being carried over as well. Will, if you've got any questions you want to answer, feel free to jump in. I'm just going to head down to the next one. In which ArcGIS Enterprise version will arcade expressions for Experience be available? So my colleague Claudia has answered that one for us. So arcade support in Experience Builder is expected in the next release of ArcGIS Enterprise, which will be 12.0, and that is scheduled for the end of the year. I'm forgetting to tick these off as I go, so that's not helping me. Is there anywhere in the Esri community where developers can share their custom widgets for new developers? I'd love to see what's been done before. So there is a community group for sharing these custom widgets. My colleague Ben has linked that as a reply as well. So make sure to go and check that out. Will, do you want to answer that top one there?
Yeah, I was just going to say there on the custom widget question around sharing code. There is, if you just Googled ArcGIS Experience Builder custom widget repository, there's a really nice GitHub that contains a lot of sample widgets for you to start playing around with, and just they introduce a few nice topics like working with map selections and linking data sources together, as well as some widget to widget communication. Yeah, really recommend having a play around with that. Yeah, sorry, I'll just jump on to the next question. Sorry, is that around the hosting of custom widgets?
Yes, so I've got is Developer Edition just for use in ArcGIS Enterprise, or can you use it for ArcGIS Online?
Yeah, predominantly enterprise, but if you have the correct sharing and collaboration setup, you can access custom widgets via ArcGIS Online.
Lovely. Okay. Just having a scroll through. I've created an ArcGIS web app builder app and widgets built in ArcGIS Online. Can I migrate them to ArcGIS Experience Builder? So if you currently use Web App Builder, definitely consider migrating your apps to ArcGIS Experience Builder. And it is recommended that if you start any new app projects, that you start them up in Experience Builder. As currently any apps you've made in Web App Builder in ArcGIS Online, they won't be able to migrate, so you need to reconfigure these. And all your widgets as well must be rewritten to work within the new framework as well. So make sure to check out that matrix as well that we'll be sending along in the follow-up email. Let me have a look. Any others, Will, that you're seeing? When would you choose ArcGIS Experience Builder instead of instant apps or dashboards? Are there more benefits to using ArcGIS Experience Builder over dashboards, for example? So yes, compared to our other app builders, Experience Builder does have a lot more configurability possible when it comes to that sort of thing. So there are many more sort of widgets and things you can bring in, sort of multi-page experiences that apps like ArcGIS dashboards don't provide. So there are sort of many different benefits. For example, dashboards is more useful for looking at sort of one-page monitoring, whereas in Experience Builder you can bring in and embed lots of different content to that as well. Same with instant apps. In a similar way to Experience Builder, you can choose from a variety of different templates, which you can't do in so much in dashboards. But again, Experience Builder does have much more advanced configurability options. So if you're looking for that sort of high-end configurability, then yes, I would definitely recommend Experience Builder. Okay, we are running out of time now. So unless you're seeing anything, Will, that you're ready to answer, I think we can call it there. So thank you everyone for joining us in this webinar today. I hope you learned something new. And yes, feel free to reach out with more questions as well and new features that you want on the community page. Our product teams do keep an eye on those. So look out for that follow-up email as well and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.